I don't have a clever intro for this. I've had a long day. Let's just do this thing. The Acolyte episode 4. I had to stop and think because it's the third video I've done, but it's the fourth episode. Disney, stop dropping 2 episodes at once in the premiere. Just stop it. Anyways. Fourth episode. And I think this is the one I like the least. And it's making me realize some things that might end up becoming problems for me with this thing overall. Quick reiteration if you're new here. I found this series intriguing. I've been going along with it. I haven't super loved it, but I'm like, I'll see where this is going. And unfortunately, what it tries to do here shows me that it might not earn what it's trying to do. And none of that has anything to do with lore or the Jedi or whatever. As I have said in the past, I don't care. I don't care about lore. And I personally don't think anything that this show has done is lore breaking. I don't. And I'm not going to argue about that fact. But here's where this has become an issue for me. Is that this episode is clearly trying to, especially with the character of May, trying to bank on me following her emotional journey when I don't feel like I know her. And obviously that in and of itself doesn't have to be a problem depending on how that journey is presented and how it moves forward, because, at a certain point, as I'm watching her react to things, I'm getting to know her. But the thing is that I've barely seen this version of May. I saw the child version of May a lot more than I saw this version of May. And that was a huge gap of time ago. I don't feel comfortable assuming that she is the same as she was when she was a child. I wouldn't assume that about literally anybody. So I'm not going to assume that about her. So all the time spent in the flashback, which I thought was a decent enough episode, doesn't tell me about who she is now. It tells me who she was at the time. It gives me an idea of maybe a range for the kind of person that she could be. Because, if this is what she was like at this point, okay, so she's not going to end up like that kind of person, but she could end up like in this spread. That's still a lot of options of the kind of person she could be based off what you show me of her as a child. And I haven't really gotten a sense to know who she is as an adult because I'm not seeing her be. I'm watching her on mission, on task, kill this Jedi, kill that Jedi, meet up with this guy, talk about your master. But I don't have a sense of her as a person. To a certain degree, a person's actions do tell you something about them, but if you don't know why they're making those choices, or if the reason that they're making those choices is incredibly surface level, then it doesn't tell you a lot about them. Because the reason she's making these choices, I have 2 reasons. Long-standing desire for revenge, and because she was told to. That tells me she is motivated by stuff that happened to her when she was a kid, which I don't find that super interesting, and that she's just doing what she's told. I also don't find that super interesting. That wasn't a problem for me up until this point, except now they're trying to pin this idea of because she knows her sister's out there, she's prepared to leave her master and go and be with her sister, which really should have an emotional impact on me, and it just doesn't. I don't know you. I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't even know enough about your relationship with your master to know if you should be as scared of him as you are. It's not even a matter of showing without telling. It's actually almost showing and a total absence of telling. We have the phrase show don't tell as kind of an overall thing, as more often than not it's better to show something and display what a person is like. Rather than just tell the audience. Now, there are exceptions to that. That's the first thing that should be understood. Show don't tell is not an absolute. There are some times where it is definitely the better choice to tell. But there's also if all you do is show and nobody just has a conversation that is separate from the thing they're all doing, then everything just feeds into the action and it's nonstop showing. But sometimes the telling gives flavor to what you show. So this is a show with an interesting plot that is not taking the time to get me to know these characters. I am tempted in a lot of ways to chalk this up to the length of the season, because this feels so much like the kind of thing that happens when you come up with a plot. You know, you have, I don't know, what is this, 8, 10? I'm going to assume 8. Most things are 8. I'm going to say 8. I would say don't correct me in the comments. People are going to correct me anyway. If you're going to correct me, put something else besides that in the comment at least. But if we have 8 episodes and you come up with a story, a plot, a series of events that you can tell over that 8 episodes, cool, but you don't have the downtime to give us the flavor and the feel of the characters. If you just design it to fill up, to have the plot, the beats, the action points, and I don't mean action necessarily by like action scene, but like the things that people do, that connects you and gets you 8 episodes. Cool. Where's the time when we actually get to know these people outside of the scenes that move the plot forward? And I know that can sound like, well, isn't that just delaying? Like, that's the time when we get to know people. When they sit down and have a conversation that is not plot critical and is not about what it is they're currently doing. I'm hard pressed to think of any conversation that any character has had with another that wasn't about what was going on. And that includes in the flashback. I am hard pressed to think of any conversation that has been vaguely casual. I think the I don't even know what to call him. The guy who's helping May had maybe had the closest to that with May, but even that's still with stuff with plot critical stuff. This feels like the kind of issues that come up from notes coming from the studio or from a script doctor being like, if it doesn't move the plot forward, cut it out. Well, no. Like, you can overload something with stuff that doesn't move the plot forward. Absolutely. But like, to get the flow properly and to get us invested in these people as opposed to plot devices and just mechanisms within the narrative machine, you need some stuff that isn't plot critical, to be blunt about it. And this doesn't really have the time for it. And it hasn't been a problem with me up to this point. And I'm not going to say it wasn't the case up to this point. Looking back on it, I think it was. But it hasn't been a problem up to this point that I noticed until they tried to have May make an emotional decision that should feel important and didn't. And I had to think about why. Why doesn't it feel important that she is about to go against her master and her mission? Because it should. That really should feel important, and it doesn't. And this is the reason I'm coming up with. I don't know if this will remain an issue, if the storytelling will just dive into action so much that I'll just realize, I just shouldn't be looking for emotional storytelling, or if they will take some downtime. I'm not expecting them to, not at the pace they're setting. But yeah, this episode, I'm not sure it's actually the worst one, but it is the one that made me realize something that wasn't working and kind of hasn't been working most of the time, but hadn't clocked. I hadn't clocked as a problem, and now I have, and now it's going to be tough to ignore. Also, they're building this big mystery out of who May's master is. Like, I don't know. I'll throw this random guess out there. I guess skip to the end if you want to avoid potentially spoilery speculation. The obvious guess for me is that guy who's helping her out, who claims to also work for whoever her master is, because, he was already there anyway. So she strings him up, and then as soon as she's out of sight, he's like, well, screw this, gets himself down, throws on the helmet, and goes and kills the Wookiee, because he already knew how to get there. Like, that to me is the obvious option. It has to be somebody we've seen before. Otherwise, there is no flipping point in the mask. And while it's possible that the reveal will be like, well, who the hell is that? I'm trying to give this thing the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. it feels like with a lot of stuff going on lately, not even just with Star Wars, but just a lot of stuff that I've been seeing over the past few years. Maybe I shouldn't count on the, obviously it has to be somebody we've seen before. Otherwise, what's the point? Because sometimes just wheel spinning and narrative cul-de-sacs apparently are a thing. But anyways, I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to stick with it. I think I'm far enough into it and I'm curious. Because again, the plot is solid. I wish I cared about these characters. Because you're not taking the time for me to do that. Like, is there a word for... It's not... Is there a word for like a plot version of the Bechdel test? Whereas, as opposed to like the Bechdel test is there has to be more than one female character. They have to have an interaction together where they discuss something other than a male character. That's the Bechdel test. I'm wondering, is there a name for a test where, just for characterization, like where two characters sit down and have a conversation that is not about the plot? Because this doesn't have it. Anyways, Acolyte, episode 4. What was this one called? Day? I think it was called. Weird title. Anyways, whatever your thoughts are on it, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills. Enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't help me, like, share, subscribe. But don't worry too much about it. And take a relaxed attitude around here so you can come on back next time you need a break. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons. Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfula, Goddess Elida, Oliver B., Melissa Pedersen, Tarak, the thing that goes joint in the anime, Jean Foray, Ulrich Bogdan, Loki Eris, Linda Walters, Jen, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Renabulax the Poodle, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperol, Dave Hall, Quite Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Toku Bluhuvian, Palba Rabajaggle, and Maraji. If you'd like to hear your name in the credits or even just see them, there are rewards on the Patreon, so maybe check those out.